Yes, of course you can build strength and muscle with body weight alone exercises, and in today's video I'm going to show you how. We're going to be talking about progressive overload. This concept is actually a familiar concept in the strength training world, but it's often either misunderstood or understood to a very low level. So I'm going to go in depth on how progressive overload works and how it can be applied to your training. So if you're someone that wants to make progress in strength or range of motion or something like this, or you're hitting plateaus, or you don't know if you're making progress, this video is going to be a great one for you. So progressive overload, as a very basic definition, is just making an exercise or a movement progressively more difficult over time. And we can do this in a variety of different ways. The reason we want to make it progressively more difficult is so the body has a positive reaction to that, and it makes us either stronger or more conditioned or increased range of motion, whatever element we're trying to kind of derive from our training. Progressive overload can be done many different ways. I'm first going to talk about what is commonly understood, and then I'm going to talk about what is not commonly understood and how you can apply these principles to your own training. So commonly, progressive overload, we can do it one of two ways. We can increase the volume. So this would be like increasing the reps or the sets. So for an example, if you're doing a chin-up exercise and you're doing 5 sets of 4 repetitions on session 1, and then you move to session 2 and you do 5 sets of 5 repetitions of chin-ups on session 2, you have successfully progressively overloaded by adding 1 rep per session, or 1 rep per set, so 5 reps in that entire session. Now this is a very linear example and not a realistic one, but for the sense of this example, it works well. So you have successfully overloaded with the volume principle of increasing the reps and keeping the sets the same. Then we can also progressively overload by increasing intensity. And in this way, we can do it by increasing the weight. So in this example, let's say we're back squatting and we're using 100 kg on the first day, and we're doing 5 sets of 5 repetitions. And then on day 2, we keep the 5 sets of 5 repetitions the same, but we increase the weight by 1 kg. So every single rep, every single set, we're doing an extra 1 kg, and we have successfully increased in intensity via weight. This is what is commonly understood. Now I'm going to talk about why people think that bodyweight strength training cannot bring you muscle size or strength. But before we do that, we have to understand this part down here. If you've done any studying with strength training, you'll probably recognize these rep ranges. So all of these are different rep ranges with different outcomes that we are looking for. So the 1 rep range is more conducive to power output. So you can think of a snatch or a clean, Olympic lifting. This would be a great way to improve your power. Then we have 2 to 6 repetitions. This is where we get into the strength work, so staying in that 2 to 6 repetition range. Then we have 7 to 12 repetitions. This is where you'd be getting more of hypertrophy work. And then the last one is 13 plus, 13 or more repetitions. And this is where we get into muscular endurance, hence the E. Now, the important thing to understand is this is actually a spectrum. It is not a uniform, it must be this repetition. So if you do, let's say, 7 repetitions, you aren't losing all of your strength benefit. You're just moving more into the hypertrophy phase than you would be the strength phase. So keeping this in mind, the reason people think that you can't make progress with bodyweight strength is at some point, yes, you can increase the reps and the sets, but at some point, the exercise is going to become so easy that you get out of this strength training range and move to hypertrophy or muscular endurance. So if you think of something like a push-up, yes, it might be very difficult in the beginning, but then you build up to 5 reps, then 10, and then people can do 50, 100 reps in a single set, and now we were way outside of that strength range. So they think that we can't increase in volume in the long term, and they think that we can't increase in intensity because we cannot add weight. Now, while this sounds correct, this is actually incorrect, and I'll go into why a little bit later of why we can add weight to the exercise, but not actual weight. So these are the 2 misunderstandings that they think. We can't increase volume and we can't increase intensity. But actually we can, and let me explain why. Okay, so we have different ways to actually progressively overload beyond just the volume increase of reps and sets and the intensity increase of weight. So we actually can increase by adjusting the rest, the complexity, the tempo, and the range of motion. And I'm going to go into how we can do this. So the first one, the rest, okay? So we can manipulate the rest to make it more difficult on our system. So this is a great way, if you're having trouble increasing reps, sets, or weight within the session, what you can do is you can decrease the rest that you normally use. So let's say you normally rest 3 minutes between sets, but you can't increase your reps, your sets, or your weight is just a really challenging exercise. Then what you can do is decrease your rest to 2 minutes 50, 2 minutes 30, something like that. And you are going to progressively overload this area by making it more difficult and having less recovery. If you continue this for a few sessions, then after a few sessions, you can come back, increase the rest back to its normal level, and you might be able to add a rep, a set, or weight, depending on what you're doing. So we can manipulate the rest for progressive overload. We can also manipulate the complexity of the exercise. Now, manipulating the complexity of the exercise is manipulating the intensity via adding weight. Now, this might sound a little bit out there, because how can you add weight to body weight exercises? And I have made a small diagram to a small picture to kind of explain this point. So here is a front lever. We have an advanced tuck front lever, and we have a full front lever. In the advanced tuck variation, our legs are very close to our center, so we are actually pulling less weight on our upper body because we are contracting everything together. And then in the full front lever, when we extend out, it is a very similar stimulus to if we added weight to a bar. We are extending the position, increasing the load on our upper body. So you are essentially adding weight to a non-weighted exercise. You can also think of this in a chin-up. So a 2-arm chin-up versus a 1-arm chin-up. I think anyone would agree that a 1-arm chin-up is vastly more difficult than a 2-arm chin-up. You could do 20 repetitions of a 2-arm chin-up, but maybe you can't do a 1-arm chin-up. And what's the reason? A 1-arm chin-up is much more complex than a 2-arm chin-up. In a 2-arm chin-up, you're having 50% of your body weight about on each arm, but in a 1-arm chin-up, you're taking 100% of your body weight on one arm. So you can think of this as adding weight to that pulling arm. You were using, let's say you're 80 kg, 40 kg, now 80 kg on one arm. So you have successfully progressively overloaded by increasing the complexity. And we don't just move from 2-arm chin-up to 1-arm chin-up. We have many different progressions to progressively overload to that final product. And the last one is range of motion. So we can increase the range of motion to make it more difficult. So for here, I have drawn a handstand push-up. This handstand push-up is at floor. This handstand push-up has the hands elevated. So if you get to a point where the handstand push-up is in the top of the strength training range of 5 or 6 repetitions, you can bring it back down by increasing the range of motion and staying within that strength training range. So these are a few examples of how we can progressively overload body weight only exercises. And the body does not respond to external weight or body weight, it responds to stimulus. So if we give the body a challenging stimulus, then yes, it's going to adapt no matter if you add weight or you don't add weight. As long as you are hitting this progressive overload principle, then you will gain muscle, you will gain strength over time. Now, one important thing that I want to talk about before I end this video. Once people understand this, one of the common mistakes that they do is that they adjust too many of these variables. So let me give you an example. Let's say we hit this range here, we're doing 5x4 and then 5x5 the next session. But on the 5x5, they increase the weight as well as increasing the repetition. So when we are using progressive overload, we only want to manipulate one variable at a time. So that can be only increasing the reps, keeping the sets, keeping the weight the same, or only increasing the weight and keeping the number of reps and sets the same. We don't want to increase the weight and the reps, or the weight and the range of motion, or the tempo and the complexity. This is too much on our body, and it's really not sustainable. It might be the first session, yeah, you did a good job, and then after that, it doesn't happen ever again. So what we want to do is we want to keep as many of these constant as we can. So we can have a constant tempo throughout the work. We can have a constant range of motion. We can have a constant complexity that we're using, a constant rest, constant reps, constant sets, and then we can adjust the weight. And this way, we can see very clearly that if we increase the weight, everything else stay the same, so it must have been an increase in some other parameter. We must have gotten stronger. One of the most common mistakes that I see with people's strength training, especially using body weight strength, but in the weight world as well, is manipulating these variables mid-set. If I take the example of a pull-up, maybe on the first couple of reps, you're touching the chest to the bar, you're pausing at the top, you're controlling the eccentric down to the passive hang, but then fatigue starts to come in, so now we decrease the range of motion a bit, and we're not touching the chest anymore, we're just getting the chin over the bar. Then it becomes a little bit too difficult at the bottom, so then we get out the passive hang, so we again cut the range of motion. and then we can't really control the eccentric because we're fatigued, so then we adjust the tempo, and then we decrease the complexity by giving a little bit of kipping to get our last rep. So in this way, yes, we have progressively overloaded by doing more repetitions, but you have also made multiple variables easier. The tempo is now easier, the range of motion is now easier, the complexity is now easier. So yes, this increased, but these three decreased. So did you actually achieve progressive overload? Probably not. So if you keep as many variables as you can constant and then just adjust one, it's a very clear way to know, okay, I am making progress, and if I do this slowly, carefully, and over time, I will continue to make progress. So I hope this helped you in your strength training journey, and know that this does not just apply to strength training. It applies to a variety of different mechanisms that we want to achieve within our overall practice. And know that I am not the body weight guy. I did make that mistake many years ago, but I use weight, and I know that weight is good in certain aspects and body weight is good in certain aspects. I use both. I'm not the body weight guy, I'm not the weight guy, I am just the guy. If you have any questions on progressive overload, or if something is confusing, please let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear your own feedback. I hope you enjoyed this. Remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. That's the session. Progressive overload. In the strength